Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Emily. I'm Lawrence Bivens, Managing Director for Policy and Public Affairs at the North Carolina Economic Development Association. My great pleasure to be with you this morning to get things kicked off and introduce our guest panelists. I have been involved in economic development in North Carolina since the late 1990s, and I've seen a lot of things change about the profession and about the process and about the people in the process. It has become more complex, it's become more complicated, it's become more transactional, and it's become more public. The stakes are higher. The world is watching what we do. And the profession has had to respond with additional professional standards and even credentials. There are a lot more offerings available today than there were 20 years ago. And today we're going to learn about one that is very accessible to North Carolina economic developers. In fact, it was designed and developed specifically for North Carolina economic developers, tailored around the specific resources and needs and challenges here in North Carolina. We're joined by two people who have been very much at the heart of this. I have been working with them since the beginning. NCEDA has been a partner with East Carolina University in developing the North Carolina Certified Economic Developer program, the curriculum, and delivering very high quality instruction since late 2019, I believe. We offered our first class, and I've even been participating in some of the classes myself as a student. Joining us today, Jolianne Busby. She is Assistant Director for Continuing and Professional Education at East Carolina University, a post she's held since 2017. She has been very much at the heart of developing the Certified Economic Developer program. She works with other professional education and non-credit course delivery programs at ECU. She came to North Carolina from Arkansas. She previously served there as Executive Director of the Arkansas Public Administration Consortium. She holds a Master's in Education from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, and I believe she also holds a Bachelor's in History from the University of Arkansas, Little Rock. Better known to NCEDA audiences is Charles Hayes. He is managing partner at the Hayes Group. That's a consulting organization. He is also a senior fellow in residence at East Carolina University. He attended ECU as both an undergraduate and graduate student some years ago. If you ever have occasion to go to Greenville with Charles, he can show you every out-of-the-way beer and hot dog joint on campus and tell you some serious stories about what the place was like in the early 70s. I met Charles, he's one of the first people I met in this business in the late 1990s. He was CEO of Research Triangle Regional Partnership, a post that he held for 2 decades, and he brought a lot of distinction upon the Research Triangle region. In that time, he's very much a thought leader in this field nationally, and also very much a mentor to many of us. Thank you, Jolianne, and also Charles for being with us today to share your insight about the program. We also have with us 2 students from the program, Will Carter and Tori Mabe from Stokes County. They're going to be on later on to share their experiences and also their expectations about participating in the program. They have been involved in the curriculum since the very first class back in late 2019. Will is Stokes County Economic Development Director. That's a post he's held since 2018. He's a lifelong resident of Stokes County. He previously worked for the city of Winston-Salem. His background is in engineering and infrastructure. He also was a construction inspector, and for a time worked in marketing and project management at the R.J. Reynolds Company. Tori Mabe runs the tourism program for Stokes County Economic Development and Tourism. That's a post he's held since April 2015. His background is in information systems. He is a 2009 graduate of the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where he majored in broadcast communications and pursued dual minors in small business entrepreneurship and information technology. And thanks to all of our panelists, all of our guests for being with us this morning, also to our participants, of course, as well. I need to run through a very important list of supporters of NCEDA. That is our patron and annual sponsors. Let's take a careful look as Emily scrolls through. Well, she'll get to our patron and annual sponsors in a moment, but these are some very important entities. I dare say that we would not be able to be here without them. They are generous financially, they're generous with their leadership, they're generous with their moral support, and it would be impossible to overstate how critical they've been in the last year during the pandemic as we've had to pivot from face-to-face events to this new virtual world. So thank you to all of our sponsors for their support. Thank you to our guests. I will now turn it over to my good friend, Jolieanne Busby.
Well, good morning, everyone. We have a presentation that will outline a little bit about our program and the history. What I'd like to point out is this particular graphic. Charles Hayes is going to start first, but what I would say is this was his vision, and the whole idea of moving the needle statewide for economic development through professional education and recognition is at the heart of why this program was created. Charles, if you are on, I would say we'll go ahead and get started with the first real slide of information.
I am on, and thank you, Jolie, and thank you, Lawrence, for that introduction. Lawrence said I attended East Carolina at the undergraduate and graduate level. I actually graduated from both of those. I attended lots of places, but actually graduated there. So I thought that was that was interesting. Thank you, each of you, for signing up for this. And I am, we're all remote, obviously, but I also do not have Zoom today. Some reason my web went down. But fortunately, I printed the slides, so hopefully we can go through it this way. And I'm on the phone, so I hope you can hear me okay. On the overview slide, Emily, I guess it's slide 2. We're looking at it's entitled North Carolina Certified Economic Developer. Why do we do this thing? And I'll go into a little bit of a background. I was in this business as an industrial developer before a lot of you on this call were born. And I was in it for a number of years, and I left and went into business for myself. And I did in business for myself for about 10 years, and I decided that what I really enjoyed and what I thought that I wanted to do with my life was economic development. So I got back into business. And when I got back into business after almost a decade being out of it, the leaders in the business, a lot of them, most of them, quite frankly, had not moved. They were still doing the same things in the same way they'd done it 10 years before, and they seemed a little stale to me. And I don't, there are obviously exceptions, and I'm not trying to, talk ugly about anybody, but that's what I saw. And so I decided if I wanted to get back in this business, I needed to make sure that I didn't do that also. So I looked around, and the only way for continuing education at the time was through IEDC. And so I pursued that and became a certified economic developer through IEDC, which is a wonderful program and great. And I applaud it, and I think it's good. Now, the School of Government at UNC Chapel Hill does a great job, too. Some of the best formal education I've ever had was at the School of Government. And they do the basic course and other courses from time to time. And they do a good job at what they do. But there was nowhere in North Carolina to get continuing education on a regular basis. So this has been in the back of my mind for several decades. And when I retired from RTRP in 2016, and quickly found out that I'd flunked retirement. And one of the things that I thought that would be really needed in this state would be some sort of program, some sort of economic development academy housed at a university that would allow us to get continuing education and other education for elected and volunteer leaders. At the time, the Associate Vice Chancellor at ECU in charge of research, economic development, and engagement was Ted Morris. And Ted Morris and I were having, the way this happened, Ted Morris and I were having breakfast one morning at a restaurant in Raleigh, just talking about, whatever we were talking about. And this came up, and he said, well, why don't you come to East Carolina and do that? I said, well, what does all that entail, Ted? How we going to do this? He said, I think it's a great idea. Let's just do it. And so we did. And Lawrence was involved from the start because NCEDA had to be, we thought, and still do think, obviously, that they have to be integral to all of this. And so we set about looking at how to best organize this and how do we do and what do we do and what should be included and what shouldn't. And so we looked at programs. Basically, it took about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, looking at existing programs around the nation, primarily those states around us. And out of that, we decided to launch the academy, and it has two instructional paths. One is what we call the certification program, and if you go through that, you can end up being a North Carolina certified economic developer. And you could take a course, and you don't have to pursue the certification. You could just take courses in that. And the other one is the honor seminar in economic development. Another thing that I noticed that over my years of working in economic development was that virtually, I'd say nothing's ever 100%, so 99.9% of the volunteer and elected leaders that are involved in economic development get involved for the right reasons. They want to make their community, their region, their state, their area better. That's what they do it for. And I don't have real data on this, but from my observations, fully 80% of them, maybe more, don't know what economic development is or how to do it. They don't understand anything about it. If you're in a rural area, you hear oftentimes, why don't you go get me a Target? If you're in an urban area, well, they haven't had an announcement of anything new in X number of months or years. Why don't they go get something? They just don't understand the process and how it works. And so we launched an honor seminar to educate. It's just 4 hours, but to educate elected and volunteer leaders on that. And we try to do about one a month of those. We stopped doing them at COVID. The last one we did was January, I think, of 2020. But now we're ratcheting those back up, and we have one scheduled in Chatham County in April and in Stanley County in May. So we try to do about one a month of those. And if you'll go to the next slide, please, Emily. Our mission is to expand the knowledge, what I just said, expand the knowledge of economic development and its dynamics for professional practitioners, government officials, community leaders, and citizens. And we want to do that to enhance decision-making and improve the economic competitiveness of North Carolina and its communities. So next slide, please. Why do we think a certification program needed? Well, I told you a lot of that already. And also, every state around us has some sort of continuing education program. Not many of them lead to a certification, or not all of them, but they all have some sort of continuing education and professional development program. And we looked around, as I said earlier, we looked around at different states, and we honed in on the University of Tennessee, or the state of Tennessee, and their programs run through the University of Tennessee. And they were very, very helpful. And a lot of our program, quite frankly, we copied from them with their blessing. We spent lots of time with them. At some conferences, we would meet up and have meetings and phone conversations, etc. And Ted Morris, who was then the Associate Vice Chancellor of ECU, and Lawrence and I went to Knoxville and spent a day with them, and they were just very, very helpful. And so we're delighted to have that. So one of the reasons we thought a certification program was needed were the reasons I've already stated, and we were lagging behind other states that were having continuing education and continuing development, and we were not. So how was the program designed? It was designed by a planning team, and that planning team that planning team was comprised of people from the university. It was comprised of members of NCCED. It was a number of people. We had a number of meetings. I remember Randall Johnson was very involved when he was going through the chairs at NCCED. He led that. A lot of this goes to him also. We would meet at the Biotech Center, and the thought leaders of NCCED were part of the planning team. I told you how we use the model programs as the foundation for the framework, how ECU Division of Research, Economic Development, and Engagement, and ECU Continuing Professional Education. And I have to say, until Joe Lee came along, we were kind of floundering around. I mean, universities are big behemoth organizations that are sometimes very difficult to wade in the water of that. I knew the bureaucracy in universities, having been fortunate enough to serve on the UNC Board of Governors, but I didn't really know anything. But Joe Lee came along, and Joe Lee pretty much saved the day. So she is really you can't give her enough accolades for this. And the continuing, my tech folks just came in, and I'm listening to myself talk now. And it doesn't sound really good, quite frankly.
Charles, do you want me to help out?
Let's see what happens. Okay, can you hear me now?
Jolie, if you want to just step in for a moment, we'll let Charles.
I'm happy to. I know that's disruptive when you're, in the middle of something and your technology is pulled away from you. So I think the last thing that Charles was going to mention is the last bullet that was part of our curriculum planning was specifically to focus our content on the state of North Carolina and its communities. And one thing Charles stressed to me is that there were other programs in IEDC available, but nothing specifically for North Carolina. And I think that's part of the magic of this program and what is so beneficial. We can go on to the next slide. So the question is, what is taught and who are the instructors? And currently, we work with academic faculty, and we bring in seasoned economic developers that are particular experts on topics that we have listed in the program as required. Charles has been immensely helpful in recruiting and selecting subject matter experts to come in, and my contribution is helping to locate academic faculty. The courses that are currently taught at ECU and are the core of the certification program include retention and expansion, innovation and entrepreneurship, attraction, organization, operation and strategy, legal framework, and data and analytics. Next slide. So I thought it would be fun to show you how things got started. And so after all of the planning and discussion and building, We launched the program in November of 2019, and our very first class was Retention and Expansion with Dr. Olga Smirnova, and she's an associate professor for the MPA program here at ECU in our Department of Political Science. She also manages the Economic Development minor program at ECU. So she was a natural fit, wonderful instructor, and this photo is our very first class, our very first cohort of folks. And we were very happy at that time before we knew that COVID was coming. So we're all smiling, and it was a very good first class. Next slide. Right after that, in January of 2020, we had our next class, Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And David Mayo, he's the director of the CRISP Small Business Resource Center at ECU that is within our Miller School of Entrepreneurship. He's actually teaching this week. We have his class this coming, well, tomorrow and Thursday. And he is a high energy, high focused visionary about how people can get into entrepreneurship and build their business ideas. So he brought a lot of energy and excellent information to our second class. There we all are again. We're still happy because we're meeting face to face at ECU, and it's grown a little. So we've gotten some new faces in the group, and that was an excellent second class. Next slide. So I added this slide because we put a lot of energy into launching the program, and I would have never thought face-to-face would mean something until COVID pretty much shut things down for us in March of last year. And like everyone, we just sort of thought the whole thing would blow over. Maybe by the end of the summer, we would all be back together. Well, that didn't go as planned. And so with some thought about keeping the education going, which is very important to me personally, we made the commitment to pivot to a virtual platform. We use WebEx at ECU, and this is our group photo, if you will, for the class that we launched first virtually, and that was in August, and I'm going to check my dates, September, for the attraction class. And so here's everyone. And it was very successful, I think, to Charles's surprise, which I'm proud. I think if you've only done face-to-face training, it's very difficult to imagine moving all of that online. But I'm very proud to say it was well done, and it was a great class. So next slide. So here we go. This was the attraction course, and Charles brought in or requested James Amato from WRAL Digital Solutions to be our guest instructor for this class. Charles, now I see you're on here if you want to speak up a little. We also brought in several panelists, which you can see, and collectively the contribution to the conversation and discussion about this topic was excellent. Charles, did you want to add anything? You're muted if you can unmute. There you go.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Apparently, when you hit that unmute button, that doesn't work. You have to hit *6 also for some reason. But when we look for these subject matter experts, we pay particular attention about what it is and what we're trying to teach, et cetera, and all like that. And James Amato with WRAL Digital Solutions is a subject matter expert. They have lots of contracts with different organizations, and in full disclosure, I'm a strategic business advisor to WRAL. But we looked at the panelists is what really set it off. Merle Flood, those of you who may not know Merle works with Millennial Campus at ECU. He was a long-term planning director for the city of Greenville. Donna, of course, is Duke Energy. Joe Melvin with the North Carolina Southeast. Merritt Atkins is a business development officer with Holt Brothers Construction. And Leanne Nance is the chief operating officer, actually, of Stewart Engineering. And they all have wonderful backgrounds in marketing, and they all have different areas of expertise. And so that's how we chose them. And so, and that was really, really, really good. I thought. We'll see what
It
Will
was.
says. Will and Tori.
It was excellent. And I would say that just from our feedback, it is the ability to have small group discussions about very real topics and applied application of things that we're learning in the class. The panelists and the speakers are the boots on the ground people that go through this every day, and they just have excellent information and experiences to share. Next slide, there we go. And look there, we have our next class, Organization, Operations, and Strategy. Very lucky to have both Dan Parks and Charles Hayes as our lead instructors for this class. Dan is the Senior Strategist at Hayes Group Consulting. And Charles has something, I'm not sure exactly what, but he has something to do with the Hayes Group Consulting, in addition to his role as the Senior Fellow in Residence at ECU. Charles, do you want to talk a little bit about this course?
Yeah, organization, operations, and strategy, of course, are very important. And, you know, there's so many different ways that economic development organizations are organized in North Carolina. Some are departments of county or city governments. Others are totally private. Others are hybrid. So what is the best organization structure for your organization, and how do you determine that? And then operations. How do you do operations? What does that mean? What are you focusing? Of course, strategy. Strategy. We also couple with this, and we talk about it, is that strategy is very important. We're strategic thinkers. We believe in that, but also equally important is tactics. We've all heard of strategies. Getting this strategic plan and it sits on the shelf and nobody does anything with it. And oftentimes that's because there are no tactics coupled with that. But anyway, we talk about all that. And Dan is as good as it gets as a strategist, and he knows that. He worked 20-some years with NC State, with the Industrial Extension Service as an associate director of that, and SBTDC. He's published, and he is just as good as it gets. So anyway, that's that.
Okay, next slide. Next, we had legal framework. And personally, I would have thought this might have been a very dry topic, but actually, the two instructors or guest speakers that Charles brought in, for me personally, not an economic developer myself, I learned so much about the risk management viewpoint. Charles, you may want to speak a little bit more, but we brought in Ernie Pearson and Dave Efford, and they were both excellent, bringing in their field of expertise in this, case studies of things that they had done. Charles, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Ernie, of course, has been involved and been one of the leaders in economic development in this state for a lot of years. Has been instrumental in some of the legislation that's gone through, et cetera. He's a former Assistant Secretary of the Department of Commerce. Dave Efford also worked at the Department of Commerce, and he is extremely knowledgeable. Both of them are. And we tried to put this legal framework around, and that may not be actually named correctly because we don't talk as much about the legal framework of the organization itself. We talk about the legal framework of everything from incentives and how you operate and what you can do and what you can't do and that sort of stuff. There are all sorts of courses at the School of Government that tell you other parts of the legal framework. But anyway, we thought we'd get two practitioners that are on the ground working with clients to educate us or help educate us on that. And I learned stuff, I mean, as I always do when I go to any of these, and Ernie and Dave both were actually excellent, I thought.
Okay, next slide. And this is the last of the 6 courses, and we just recently offered data and analytics. And Charles, well, let me just say, the faculty member we had anticipated teaching this course from ECU retired after COVID came into play. And so we were very fortunate to have Dr. Adam Jones from UNC Wilmington. He was extraordinary, and you can tell that he must be a favorite faculty member on campus. His particular style of delivering, I think, complex information and resources was just top grade. And we had a very full class. So we had lots of breakout sessions and resources for folks to use and to report back on. But I included this slide that shows a resource. Don't ask me what FRED stands for. Will Carter can talk about that. But I believe overall, what we find is between higher education, academic faculty who contribute sort of theoretical background and also current knowledge and trends, they receive as much back as they give. Being in a room of current practitioners in the field is a true benefit for them and their classroom presentations. And then we have the applied practitioners, people that are in the field now that are bringing their expertise and their experience for those of us in the class that are maybe new or didn't formally study economic development. So all in, the two groups of presenters have been a magic combination, I think, for all of our participants. Charles, would you agree?
And let me say, I do agree. And let me say something about Dr. Jones. Jolie was very kind in saying that the person retired, which they did, but we didn't know they were going to retire. And they just kind of retired. And so we were looking, we weren't looking, we were scrambling. Who in the world we're going to get to teach this course? It had already been scheduled, et cetera. And so I called you guys, I called the economic development professionals, or several of them around the state, and said, who can we get to do this? And we had lots of recommendations. And one of the ones that was recommended by several different people that I contacted was Dr. Jones. And so I called him. I'd never met him. I called him, and fortunately he was kind enough to do it. And I think he thoroughly enjoyed it. And he was great. He was great. He was really good. I mean, like data and analytics, okay. Well, maybe at least we online so I can sleep during this. But he was good. He was really good. So anyway,
I agree. It was we get a lot of great feedback after every class, but I think we have a whole new fan base for Dr. Jones. Okay, so next slide. This I added this morning, so thank you to Emily and Liz for putting this extra slide in. Charles and I talked, and I thought it would be important to show a heat map of where our program participants are currently located. So this is a representation of all the participants that have ever registered for a course, or for those that are pursuing certification. And I think we've done a great job of touching a huge portion of the state. And I know that their outreach probably goes outside of what we see on the map. And then most interestingly, we have a new participant this week that is in Troy, New York. And we will get to meet this gentleman and learn a bit about what brought him to our program here in North Carolina. But I'm just very proud to see how far this program, this brand new program, even with a pandemic, has influenced and impacted our state right out of the gate. Next slide. So basically, I think why Charles was so happy that I became a part of this program is just bringing some experience I had with professional certification programs. So this is the part that I probably played the biggest role outside of organizing the courses, and that is to help participants go through all of the steps for certification, which includes the 6 courses that we've just discussed that have currently all been offered at ECU. There is discussion, hopefully we'll get on the other side of the pandemic, of offering these core courses outside of ECU on other either UNC system campuses or private college campuses. So there's the 6: data and analytics, innovation and entrepreneurship, retention and expansion, attraction, legal framework, organization, operation, and strategy. In addition to that, we do require for certification that a participant completes the IECD basic course offered by UNC Chapel Hill. Right now, they seem to be on pause. I've asked to find out when their next course will be offered. So we've got some folks that need to do that, but that is part of the requirement for certification. And currently, we have 10 of our original participants working on their capstone project. And this particular project is quasi-academic in the sense that it is a structured document. It is a proposal to resolve a need or a concern in the community. And basically, the completion of that will be a gift back to their organization or their county. And right now, our current folks are in the middle of working on theirs, and that will be due soon. And then under review of members of the current NCEDA board or past presidents will be selected to review those capstones. And then to wrap it up with a bow, while this program is mainly housed at ECU, ECU does not confer the actual professional certification. The state chapter, NCEDA, actually confers that certification to participants. So all in all, it is just a wonderful collaboration, excellent people that put a lot of time into making this happen. And hopefully through this webinar, we'll generate some interest for new folks.
And one thing I'd like to say, the IED, the course at Chapel Hill, the basic course, is a requirement, but it's not a prerequisite. So you have to take it, but it's not a prerequisite to any of the other courses.
Excellent point, Charles. Thank you. Okay. So if anyone is participating in this webinar today and you're interested, you can reach out to me directly. We do have online registration, and I'm happy to send out a link. We adjusted the cost of the program when we went to a virtual platform, so it's $295. The sessions are open, so anyone can attend, and we do have a variety of folks that come in for a class or two or are committed to the certification process. They just have to let me know, and which is the part where just indicate that you're interested. We will track your progress with a transcript and make sure that you get everything done and are ready for your capstone. And that's pretty much it. It's easy. We have I think a camaraderie of people that have now been in multiple courses together and very welcoming to anyone that is new. And then the next slide has what we have coming up. So we have the Innovation and Entrepreneurship course this week. And if you're interested, let me know today and we'll squeeze you in. And then in April, we have Organization, Operation, and Strategy with Charles and Dan Parks. And then we have an honor seminar that Charles is working on with Chatham County, and that'll be April 22nd. And then we have one for Stanley County just announced today that will be May 26th. That's
Okay.
all for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
both.
you all.
That was terrific. We do have a question, and I want to briefly address this question because it's a good one. We also want to hear from Will and Tori about their experiences, but Paul Stratos asks to compare and contrast the requirements of the North Carolina certificate program with those of the IEDC. Charles, can you speak to that?
Yeah, when we were setting this up, Jeff Finkel, who heads the IEDC, I actually met with him in Washington, and he was kind enough to give us their blessing to go ahead. We're not competing with them. I met with their on several occasions with their director of training for the certification program. And the basic difference, I mean, a lot of the same courses, I shouldn't say the basic difference. One of the differences is the IEDC course is the same course that would be taught for someone, say if you take the attraction course or marketing or whatever they call it, would be the same course that you would take if you're from Idaho or if you're from California. And I have been fortunate enough over the years of teaching some of those courses. So you know, you do that. This is more place-based. This is more North Carolina centric. It's that's the difference. We use local people to teach it. And it's primarily for North Carolinians, although we have, as Joe Lee just said, we have one person taking a course from New York, but it's North Carolina centric would be the basic difference.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you, Paul Stratos, for that very good question. I'll invite Will and Tori to turn on their videos so we can see you, and also unmute yourselves. So that is Will on the right of your screen, and that is Tori on the left in the blue. Hi, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. I thought we had a few minutes left over. We could just ask you to share your insight on, one, why you you opted to pursue the certificate, and I wanted also to ask you how your county leaders reacted when you approached them with the ideas that the certificate it does require some financial investment. It also requires some time on your part. Was it difficult to convince them that this program was worthwhile?
Not at all. Our county manager believes in continuing education and was very excited that we found out about it through NCEDA, and he was glad that we were interested and that the program was available. It's affordable for a rural county like us. Obviously, we can't afford to travel around the country to take courses. And as Charles said a minute ago, it's also for North Carolina where we're at. So it's the emphasis is on our state and growing our state, and very enjoyable course, learned a lot. Gave me some new ways of thinking about the same problem. A lot of the area in the state has the same issues, especially the rural communities, but and it allowed me to hear other people from other counties' perspective and see what they're doing, and then I could take that and apply it here to help do a better job.
Yeah, and just like Will said, we learned a lot from all of the instructors and the presenters. When we were going through that presentation, I was thinking back to James Amato's presentation with WRAL and marketing and attraction, which is what I do a lot of here with the tourism side of things. And we work together as a team. So the marketing that we were doing and that he was telling us about was a lot of what we were already doing and had in place. And it was just great to know that we were going on the right path here, expanding this department. We took it over from an interim point and have worked and learned different things along the way through NCEDA, EDPNC, and these courses helped us to realize that we were doing exactly what we should be doing, and helped us to figure out a better direction to go in the future. And
helped us organize better. And I highly recommend the program. The presenters were amazing. Charles, Jolie, y'all are great. Love being around you. I miss the in-person. I do miss that. But very excited to complete this capstone project and be the first group to go through the program.
Tell us more about that. Tell us about your plans for the capstone requirement. What exactly does that even mean?
Well, as Jolie said, it's something that would be beneficial for our community and our county, and we're to come up with a plan from an idea, whatever it might be, that we choose that will improve the community, and then make a plan on how to get it funded and the proper steps in how to make it, how to accomplish the goal, you know.
And even though we work in the same department, we'll be doing two different plans, and these will be plans that can be implemented in our area, or maybe help in the future to apply for grant funding for something, or even recruit a business. So we're looking forward to being able to complete that and have that in place.
And as Jolie said, we're, hopefully when we're finished with it, we'll be able to bring it back and make it happen. It's a realistic, it's not just something made up, it's realistic, and hopefully we can make it happen.
I suspect your county manager will really appreciate that. Your county leadership should really appreciate your work there.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this now. So you completed 5 courses. I was there with you for 2 of them. Let me ask you, at the risk of alienating anybody anybody on the faculty. What were your favorite classes of the 5?
Well, I have to say my most memorable, and all of them, I thoroughly enjoyed all of them, and
What
I
mine were?
learned something from everyone. I really did. But the one that will always stick out in my mind is learning about Fred, as Jolie mentioned earlier.
What is Fred?
Yeah. Well, I believe it was Dr. Jones that taught data and analytics. And at the end of the class, I made the comment that I appreciated him introducing me to someone named Fred that knows more about my county than I do.
Yeah, I believe that means, I think it stands for Federal Reserve Economic Data. Am I remembering?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, well, I missed that one, so I'll have to put that one on my list. I think Jolie and Charles may not have mentioned that, I mean, NCEDA wants our members to become certified. That's the whole point. But these courses are available on a one-time basis also. If there's somebody out there who's not particularly interested in the certification, but they are interested in data, for example, or the legal elements of the profession, they can take a course, they can, without actually matriculating in the program. Am I right about that?
That is correct.
That is correct. We have a gentleman named Brian Tribble out of Wilmington, and he basically just kind of pops in on whichever topics he's interested in. He likely is not going to pursue certification, but that's a perfect example of someone that wants real targeted information. Mm-hmm.
Let me add also in response to Paul Strato's question that Charles addressed earlier, and I've taken both IEDC courses and the NCCED courses. And not only are the North Carolina courses oriented toward things in North Carolina, taught by North Carolina faculty, et cetera. Everything Charles said is very true, but also I found there's very much a hands-on instructional component in the NC certified program. That entrepreneurship course that we were doing a year ago, Jolie, weren't we up making cookies or something? It was really interesting. Some of the, I guess the pedagogy that was involved in that was fascinating. At IEDC, because there are so many people in the room, it's pretty much an old-fashioned kind of lecture type of format. There's not just a whole lot of hands-on learning opportunities in a format like that. And so that's another difference, I think.
I would agree. One way that we've adapted to virtual is taking advantage of WebEx, and Zoom also has breakout sessions where we can put people in small groups. They will have a case study or an assignment to work on as a group, and then we come back, people report out. And I think that's the critical difference between a professional licensure or professional certification program. It's not just theory. You have to apply what you're learning right then and put it into practice if it's really going to stick with you. And we do a great job, our instructors do a great job of building all of those exercises into each course. So at the end, not only have you heard about it, but you've actually used it, and then you're going to take it away from, at the end of the course.
Excellent. I've got one final question I want to put to Charles Hayes, and it's coming out of left field, Charles, so get ready, take a deep breath. You mentioned in your remarks at the very beginning that other southeastern states had developed these curricula, and we often in North Carolina talk about how innovative we are and how much North Carolina is a leader among southern states. Why were we behind on this one?
Interesting question, and I had not really thought about that. I do think that North Carolina has been very successful. North Carolina has gone from the second poorest state to one of the most to the top 10 state and by most indices, and we were doing well, and so there wasn't any need for it. There was a long time there was a pushback in North Carolina on even becoming a certified economic developer. In fact, it was jokingly called LCED. So that's when it was a certified industrial developer, and people would laugh about it. We don't need to do that. So anyway, that was part of it. I think.
Excellent. Jolie, any final thoughts?
Just thank you very much for having us present today. It's a program that's I think going to really take off in the next few months into next year. And I just am appreciative of Charles Hayes and NCEDA. Without Charles's vision and the support that we have from the state and the buy-in and recognition from NCEDA, this program wouldn't exist. So it's near and dear to me. It's a program that makes me very happy to be a part of. And I welcome anyone to reach out if they have questions or want to register, but generally just appreciate the opportunity to talk about this great educational opportunity for people working in the field.
Well, we appreciate your leadership in this too. It really has been remarkable. As Charles mentioned, you have been very much a catalyst in this whole thing. We had done some work on it and there was a lot of inspiration from a lot of different places, but you had the technical capacity to execute this thing, and it has made all the difference in the world, and we're enormously grateful for it. Will and Tori, any final thoughts from you?
Yes, sir. You know, there's an old saying that if you go to any class and learn one thing, it was worth going. I want to assure everyone listening, you will learn a lot, not just one thing. It is well worth your time and money to take these courses. And I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given us.
Even how to make cookies and just being with the other people in class.
It's also fun. And
the other classmates just make it even more.
Let me say, I've noticed something else back when we were having face-to-face courses, that for people who are alums of East Carolina University, going back to Greenville and spending a couple of days there, an environment like this, a learning situation like this, that seemed like a very special experience for them. And I don't think that should be underestimated. Charles Hayes, last word.
Thank you for doing this webinar. We are very excited about this program. We're excited about the people that are taking the courses. It's been well received, and we do intend to move this course around the state at other universities. You know, just name them at wherever they may be, but we wanted the first year to be on grounds at ECU as much as possible, but then we went remote. But hopefully, if we go according to plan, we'll move it around the state.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Charles, Jolie, Will, and Tori. Let me thank once again our patron and annual sponsors, the names and logos you saw on your screen earlier today, without whose support this offering would not have been possible. Watch your email, watch your e-news closely. We've got a lot more coming up in the next few weeks as far as webinars and professional development events, not least of which is our spring conference, which is coming up March 16th and 17th. So be watchful for additional details on all these things, and we'll see you soon, virtually, hopefully in person, before too long. In the meantime, stay safe, stay connected, and stay informed. Thanks so much.
Thank you.